Joining me, as they do every week, is New South Wales Independent MP Tanya Mihalich and former New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott. Hi to both of you as always. Thank you. Now, look, I want to start obviously with the big story today. I want to get your quick opinions before we move on to the rest of the day's news about Sussan Ley's leadership. A reminder, here was Liberal Senator Sarah Henderson today.
I can't pretend things are good. Things are not travelling well. I do have to say, really honestly, I do think Sussan is losing support.
David, can she survive as leader?
Well, I mean, anything's possible. I remember working for a bloke called John Howard who was called Mr 17%. And so anything is possible. And Kevin Rudd showed us that it can turn on a dime, depending on circumstances. But the party does need to look at its narrative. There's a lot of tyre kicking going on out there in the Conservative voter base. They're looking at One Nation, they're looking at the Liberal Party, they're comparing it to the National Party. And we're seeing a lot of indecision about who they should support. But let's not forget, Labor's not even at 40%, they're not even at 35%. So Sussan can survive, but the team has to be united. They need to get their narrative together. They need to dump net zero, and then they need to ensure that they get the right candidates early on in the field.
Well, I just wonder though, are they going to go, yep, we've got our energy policy now? I mean, I feel like Andrew Hastie almost said it today. Get an energy policy together, then the sharks are going to start circling. Or what do you think?
Look, once this, history tells us that once this sort of stuff, starts where people raise issues like Senator Henderson did today, it tells you that people are worried. You're going to have people sitting in the House of Reps really worried about their own personal seats. So whether it's this month or next month or in 6 months, I think eventually Sussan Ley will have to call it a day. I honestly think that's what's going to happen with the Liberal Party. I don't think they're ready now for change, but I do think there is so much animosity, so much internal machinations going on in this party at the moment, and they're hurting. They're hurting from one of the worst defeats they've ever had in history back in May, and I think I just think it's just a matter of time for Sussan Ley, one way or another. And listening to Michael McCormack just moments ago, I was shocked that he told everybody just to go to the beach and there's nothing to see and relax. Well, no, I don't think that's the case. I think people are genuinely worried inside that party. People that support the Liberal Party are worried. Everybody wants a two-party system in Australia. We want a healthy opposition.
Of course.
And we want an opposition that actually has an opportunity and a chance one day to be in government. And I am very, very worried about the current Liberal Party federally.
Well, voters want options as well. You know, you at home, you want an option, and we want to see some actual differentiation in policy. So, hey, look, let's see how the week pans out. David, you mentioned One Nation. It's doubled its membership base since the May federal election and is now establishing new party branches across regional Australia. The Australian has revealed that the party is weeks away from launching its new Central Queensland branch after it last month poached Tamworth Nationals members to set up a base in the electorate of New England, of course, Barnaby Joyce's. Why are voters turning to One Nation?
Well, we've been down this road before, of course, after 96, when One Nation had a surge and it couldn't cope. It didn't have the administration, didn't have the infrastructure to cope with the surge of support that it got dodgy candidates, got branch executives that didn't know what they were doing. So we have seen this before. I mean, as I said, the voters are looking at all options at the moment. And, I mean, our problem is on our side is we've got moderates out there saying, well, we're only going to solve the Liberal Party if we get rid of Andrew Hastie and Jacinta Price. Well, actually, this is proof positive that we're actually going to need some right-wing warriors to go to these One Nation devotees and say, come back, we need your help. As John Howard always said, broad church is a good church. A successful church is when the right wing and the left wing work together. In opposition, that never happens, and that's because a lot of the real stoic leaders go and do their own thing, and we need to bring back full-time the Jeff Kennetts and the Michael Krogers and the Nick Greiners and the John Howards. We need them in to rally the troops, to handpick some good Conservatives that will go back out into the One Nation field and say, come back to the Liberal Party, because at the moment, it seems to be a central party, a moderate central party, and we ain't going to beat Labor in government when they're governing from the centre.
No, but you're right about the likes of Hastie or Jacinta Price. I mean, they're talking about, immigration, for example, mass migration, which is a huge issue in this country, net zero. But the more this goes on, I mean, the more you get these Liberals that are actually freelancing almost on these issues. Tanya, you were once a One Nation MP yourself. You have to admit,
even a leader.
Even a leader, but you have to admit they're doing pretty well. Why?
Oh, look, I think David's said it quite well. When the Liberal Party has its issues, there will be votes that bleed to the right, and that's what's happened here. I think people see that Pauline Hanson herself, she's a strong leader. I'm not going to disparage her personally. I know that she is a strong leader. She's certainly strong in her views. She's quite different in her approach from, say, Sussan Ley in that context. But look, David has said quite rightly that they had problems with their party administration years ago, and I would have to say nothing's changed. I think the biggest problem that One Nation has is that they don't have the structure or the ability to have to be an alternative government. Okay, that's the problem. They are a party like the Greens. They can raise issues, they can raise policies, they can campaign on matters, but they're never going to have the structure or the capacity or the means to actually form or be part of a government. And that's where, in the end, you just need to explain to people that the Liberal Party does have the capacity, and normally has had the capacity, to have both moderates and Conservatives in its structure, and it has a structure. My experience in the 20 months that I was in One Nation, there are very few branch meetings, there are very few opportunities for grassroots control or leadership. I think in the end decisions are made top down in that party, and that's why a lot of people leave.
Well, I mean, they're certainly doing well in the polls because they're bleeding, the Liberal Party is bleeding voters, and people are looking for an alternative at the moment, and clearly One Nation's providing that. Let's talk about the public sector workforce in federal, state and local governments. It's increased by 82,000 jobs in the 2024-25 financial year to nearly 2.6 million. It means taxpayers are paying $249.5 billion, up from $231.7 billion the year before. David, we've got record spending as it is. Now the public sector workforce is blown out. Is this not more evidence why we need a Doge-style department to make cuts?
Well, if not a Doge-style department, a department that is going to identify where those jobs are actually needed. We need cops, we need soldiers. So they are public sector jobs that we need to have employed on the taxpayer's dime. We don't need cardigan-wearing biscuit munchers that are sitting in offices in the city of Sydney or in some regional centre because they need to generate a job in that particular electorate, and that is unfortunately what happens. So I think before I slash public service jobs, I want to highlight where they're going and where they're needed, and I think we need to direct people into those areas. I mean, I know in the engineering fraternity the government just can't attract good engineers, not that they're spending record numbers in infrastructure at the moment, but if they were to do that, we would need more engineers in the public sector. That is important. But a clerk in an office in suburban Sydney is obviously not. It's not
viable. I mean, we do need emergency services. I think that's a fair point. But 82,000 additional jobs, I don't know how that can be justified realistically.
I think right now it's only Canberra that's booming and everybody else is going bust. That's what's actually happening in Australia. Look, Albanese has always loved, and Labor loves having a large bureaucracy. That's what they're about. And Chris Minns as well is following suit. Labor has absolutely expanded its public service in every state and territory that they are currently governing. So, and what we're seeing is a lull in productivity growth, and small businesses are desperate now for some incentives from government, some support. Jim Chalmers was just saying it today. I think that that's the problem. You can recognise that there's a productivity growth problem in Australia. Well, what are you doing about it?
Well, exactly.
Put the handbrake on the bureaucracy and start supporting small business.
Exactly. Well, I don't know why anyone would want to go into business right now in this country. I mean, there's a lot of issues, and Labor's certainly not helping. Before we go, we've got to talk about your column today in the Daily Telegraph. Today's
Words of wisdom.
If I was a dictator for a day. Go on, tell us your points here, David.
Well,
what would you do?
I am an economic rationalist, but we subsidise heavily public transport on gazetted public holidays. So let's give mum and the kids a free trip to the Blue Mountains, and it creates economic activity, and it also gets the drunks off the roads. Let's stop giving how to get out of jail free cards to kids 3 times in a week.
Yes, I like
that. Let's make sure that they know that a second chance is a privilege, not a right. Let's highlight the fact that Australian history shouldn't be dismissed. I mean, we've got people out there dyeing their hair purple and burning the flag.
And doing all sorts.
On issues that they've never read a book about. So. Yeah, I got a bit cranky
I
when I
like
wrote
that.
that.
Tanya, what do you reckon?
Look, it starts off okay, free public transport. I think the devil's in the detail. I read your article properly, David, and I don't know about this one negative gearing property. For,
I don't think
that's a
that
bit
we should
unfair. We should be supporting aspirational.
No, with
people
one,
being aspirational.
with one. We shouldn't be allowing
What
people
did
to
John
have...
Howard say? The more, it's up to you to invest.
No,
so
well,
that's
invest
not very
somewhere else.
liberal
Don't
of
deny
you.
a family a home.
Can I just say one we haven't mentioned yet? Make the ABC a subscription service.
That was a good one. There you go.
I'll concur. Definitely will concur with that
They're all
one.
dribblers. I'm sick of paying for that.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? We've got to go. David Elliott, Tanya Mihaela, good to have you both on.
Thanks.
Have a nice weekend. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me.